Hello, and thank you for joining us today. We have a very important topic to share with you: commitment and the power that lies within. So, what is commitment? Commitment can most easily be described as an attachment that drives an individual's behavior based on a strong belief they hold. Steve Marabelli said, "To embark on a journey toward your goals and dreams requires bravery. To remain on that path requires courage. The bridge that links the two is commitment." Today, we'll take you on a journey as we reveal the key factors of commitment, what drives commitment within individuals, the benefits they can receive and organizations, and a view of historical to modern day effects of commitment in organizations. We begin our journey by discussing the power of commitment in individuals.
Commitment and consistency are factors that powerfully influence minds. Whether the commitment and consistency comes from one's own beliefs and behavior, or if it is induced upon them by an outsider, commitment and consistency are dominant forces that can affect daily decisions of people no matter what background they come from. These forces shape beliefs and decisions from the most important life-altering to the minor and mundane. Not often is a decision made by a person without commitment somehow influencing that decision in some way. For many years, psychologists have been aware of the power of consistency to commitments. They have known that commitment motivates the decision-making process because one's need to remain consistent, especially in public, is so strong it can even influence a person into making a decision that is not in their self-interest. Once a person has committed to supporting an organization, following a cause, acting in a certain way, or liking a certain thing or product, it is uncommon for that person to act in an opposing way or to commit to an opposing decision. So strong are these motivators that they become automatic. Therefore, it is important to realize that even the littlest of commitments may have unintended or even harmful consequences. Mostly, the desire to remain consistent to commitments is a positive thing. It helps make life's decisions more manageable. To others, consistency is usually seen as a good quality for a person to have. A consistent person seems more stable and efficient. Without consistency to commitments, life would be more stressful and overwhelming. The ability to default to previously committed to decisions in response to a new decision makes our lives more efficient. The luxury allows us to spend our time and direct our brain capacity toward other things such as innovation and creation. It also allows us to give of our time to others or indulge in hobbies. The importance of making wise commitment and staying consistently loyal to that commitment can seldom be overstated. It is this foolish commitment that one needs to beware. Harmful commitment happens when the drive to remain consistent overtakes the mind's ability to make the most rational or beneficial decision. This type of foolish commitment can lead many in positions that were entirely unintended. A simple act of committing to a minor thing now can lead a person to make decisions they would have never previously made. It can also cause a person to create other reasons as to why the original decision was made, even though before the person was committed, they would have never come to that specific conclusion. Many people repeatedly make foolish decisions without ever realizing that their desire to do so stems from an earlier commitment they made. It is wise to carefully consider the consequences of every commitment we make. We can learn from the studies of psychologists that each decision we make likely stems from an earlier commitment that has now changed the way we see ourselves and others. Choosing to research and carefully consider any commitment that presents itself will likely bring the most beneficial outcomes in our daily lives.
Now that we've had a brief overview of commitment, let's discuss different ways a company can incentivize its employees to stay for the long term. If a company cannot instill commitment within their employees, This leads to a higher rate of employee turnover, which means more time, money, and manpower must be spent by the company to seek out, hire, and train new employees. However, if they can instill commitment in their employees, then the employee will stick around longer and work harder for the company. Two different avenues are going to be discussed here of ways that a company can instill commitment within their employees. These avenues are tangible benefits and intangible benefits. We'll define both tangible and intangible benefits, give examples of each that you can find in the modern workplace, and then we'll discuss pros and cons of both tangible and intangible benefits. Let's get started. Tangible benefits are quantitative benefits, not qualitative benefits. Most often, tangible benefits are financial. Tangible benefits can come in the form of higher salaries, bonuses, retirement matching, pension plans, or health insurance premiums paid for by the employer. You can think of tangible benefits as anything that affects the paycheck at the end of the pay period. Pros of tangible benefits to the employee are that, like I said, they affect the paycheck at the end of the week, quarter, or whenever you get paid. For instance, if a company is paying your health insurance premiums and you don't need to pay your full premium each month, that's more money you put in your pocket. Similarly, if a company is willing to give you a higher salary than a competitor, that's one benefit that may entice you to stay at the company or to join the company. Cons of tangible benefits is that they're expensive to the company, costing the company more upfront than if they weren't to offer that tangible benefit to you. Intangible benefits, on the other hand, are qualitative, not quantitative. They can be more abstract and difficult to measure and quantify. Examples of these include options to work at home, inherent job satisfaction, workplace autonomy, and opportunity for growth or mastery. If a company can show you what you're doing matters in the world, you're more likely to stay longer and work harder there than if you feel that your work doesn't matter in the long run. Similarly, if you're able to set your own schedule and work where and when you want, a company believes that you're more likely to, again, stay longer and work harder. The main pro of intangible benefits is that they affect the life outside of an office of the employee. This means you potentially spend more time at home with more paid time off or the ability to work a day or two at home, as well as more job satisfaction and more autonomy, meaning you can set your own schedule and work when you want. However, intangible benefits can be difficult to standardize, not only from company to company, but even within a company. For instance, some managers may let their employees work at home or condensed hours, giving them 3-day weekends, while other managers require a full 5 days, 8 to 10 hours a day. When looking for a job, be sure to ask your team manager what their policy is when it comes to intangible benefits, because these are often not explicitly stated within the job description.
In order to understand the commitments that employees have with their employers, we're going to look back at 6 broad historical eras and compare and contrast them to the modern workplace. The guild system was a form of employment in medieval Europe in which each guild comprised a single functional area. Think of a baker's guild or a cooper's guild in which each guild made a particular object. In this workplace environment, employees were typically employed for life, and the profession itself would pass from father to son. If you were a woman, you were typically married off to another family within the same guild to increase the power of the guild. Thus, marriage was the ultimate employee commitment device. These were also the era of the Master-Servant Acts, in which an employee was legally required to work for a particular employer and could be thrown in jail if they did not. As the European economy shifted from an agricultural to an industrial economy with the rise of the Age of Discovery, cottage industries were born. In the cottage industry, a particular family would make one particular item from start to finish. For example, a family might make shoes, or they might make farm implements, and they would then sell those particular items to another individual that may be in the same town, or more likely could be 2 or 3 towns over. This is a very insecure relationship. The employee could lose their job at any time. The employer was under no obligation to continue purchasing the item. In 1769, James Watt invented the steam engine, and thus the Industrial Revolution was born. In this workplace environment, instead of making a particular item from start to finish, a particular worker was focused on making only one particular part of a particular item. So if the preceding farm implement that was made by one person, in this situation, maybe the worker would only make the pole or the wheel or a similar item from that farm implement. The skilled labor of the artisan was no longer needed. The beginning of the 20th century was also the start of the mass industrial production line. Scientific management was a method of management in which time and motion studies were completed. In these time and motion studies, every particular aspect of a worker's responsibility was analyzed for productivity increases. The upside of this situation was that employees started making more money. For instance, Henry Ford famously raised the wage of his workers to $5 an hour. As the American economy shifted from an industrial to an information-based economy, workers became more valuable. Thus, employers started offering more benefits, such as retirement and health insurance. Something in health insurance especially was sorely lacking in any of the preceding eras. Typically, if an employee was hurt on the job prior to the 19th century, the worker was simply replaced with someone else. The late 20th and early 21st century saw the rise of the gig economy. And in this particular situation, an employee was under no obligation to a particular employer. Indeed, it's not unusual for employees to have more than one employer. A driver may drive for Uber, may also drive for Lyft, and may have an Airbnb where he in his home at night. Unfortunately, in this economy, there are no pensions or golden handcuffs. In other words, there's nothing to tie an employee to a particular employer.
Now that we've looked at the historical perspective, we want to take a look at the current perspective. So in doing so, we want to take a look at the 3 generations that make up the workforce: the baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials. Here we have 3 pictures, one of the baby boomer, which I think everyone can clearly see which one it is, and the Gen X and millennial CEOs. Generational trends and stereotypes may not reflect the whole truth, as people are very different, but can still be helpful in analyzing situations. First, let's take a look at the boomers. Born between 46 and 64, they number about 40 million in the workforce today. Primarily, they work with manual processes, low tech, think of these typewriters, and their hierarchy tended to be a top-down organization. Their goals tended to be the same as well, a top-down approach to goal setting. So they have a tougher time adjusting to the new culture that we have with Gen X and millennials. The Gen Xers came next. So Gen Xers are from 1965 to 1980, numbering about 53 million strong. And we were essentially born to this boom in technology. So it started off with the PCs, like this IBM picture here, or the TRS-80s. And we developed Macs, laptops, and then we developed this thing called the World Wide Web. At the time, I think a lot of people called it that instead of the internet. Now, the millennials make up the largest segment of the workforce today. Born between 1981 and 1996, they number about 56 million. They were truly born to tech. They were, alive during the blow up of the internet, where it encompassed pretty much everything. So they grew up with mobile computers in their hands, also known as a smartphone. And they've got computing power that's never been seen before. they also grew up with this whole concept of, how normal people are important. Well, let's face it, everyone is important is how they grew up, and everyone deserves a trophy. And I think that influenced how some of the culture has changed today. So going from boomers to millennials, a lot has changed about, our ideas of organizations and labor. And I think a lot of that was changed by millennials, but also through technology. I think a lot of these things were technology driven. And before we think that certain industries don't have it, I think most do. Think about timesheets, point of sale systems, pads. They essentially cover most people out there today that are working. So with this technology, it's also driven, other ways to do collaboration and communication through tools like Skype, RingCentral, Fuse, WebEx. So it lets us communicate with people, across vast distances. This technology has also allowed us to get data so that our policies are now data-driven more than just a gut feel. And that data tells us that taking care of people produces results. And part of it's because this whole notion that people, who used to be in the assembly lines, they're now the profit machines. And I think that really changes how we interact with labor. That data also does tell us that soft skills are more important than ever. And I think it also came about with millennials and everyone being important. So some common themes that allow us to put the dollars with our hearts: empowerment, enlisting people instead of forcing them, encouragement, care, respect, communicate properly. I think all these help us get results through caring, where we can make a dollar because at the end of the day, that's what a business is for. In addition, we can make that dollar while still having a heart. I don't think they're two separate things. Also in this time, I think working conditions have improved. So we're allowed to do a lot more remote work. One of the reasons why I'm doing this video at my house is because this is where I do most of my work. Because of laptops, VPNs, connections that are super fast now, we have the ability to do things at home that we used to only be able to do at the office. We also have flexible work schedules where we can really work, into our own schedules and work how we work the most efficiently. Now, that also means that we tend to put in more hours than normal, and we're online all the time. And so that's a benefit to the employer, where they can get us at almost any time. In addition to that, we do have tangible benefits like, fitness facilities, lunchrooms, things that weren't available before. And the pictures that I've got here all talk about, creating atmospheres for encouragement and collaboration. The upper left-hand corner is an old break room. The other two are new. The one that I've got pictured called the Hub is actually from Qualtrics down in Provo. I want to bring this all back to a real-life example and make it personal. When I was working at Northrop Grumman, we had a lot of consultants join our ranks as part of our team members. So they left consulting to be permanent in the ERP department. And I think they did so, a lot of it because there was a sense of team that we had built. We had created a culture where everyone was empowered, they're respected, and they're expected to speak up on things. We didn't have a whole lot of tangible benefits. But because of that, I think our retention policies were low, and we emphasized those intrinsic motivational factors. We did have other things. So we did allow people to work remotely. Like I said, I've spent the last decade mostly working remotely. We did have a lot of flex time as well. All of this, I thought, drove performance where it was real. We had real value come out of it from all this commitment. And I think it produced really good results. We had the least number of systems of any large A&D company. And we also had the lowest cost per revenue dollar for those companies. And I think that's really the point of commitment. We want to try to get the results while taking care of our people.
In conclusion, the key to driving commitment is ultimately one's ability to first understand the importance it plays in individual lives and the benefits that come from being able to harness its power. Establishing self-awareness at an individual level can help a person clearly identify what motivates them and what is intrinsically driving their behavior. Additionally, self-awareness can help individuals avoid the pitfalls that can come by committing to things simply because of previous choices. There has been no doubt a huge transformation with how organizations have historically treated employees, what the commitment was then, and the level of commitment that you see in many modern organizations today. As companies test new methods over time and see results, they will continue to adopt best practices and drive incremental changes that produce equally mutual benefits for their employees and the organization. Time will only tell what organizations will learn from what drives commitment today and how that will shape a different future of what commitment looks like then. Mario Andretti said, "Desire is the key to motivation, but it's determination and commitment to an unrelenting pursuit of your goal, a commitment to excellence that will enable you to attain the success you seek." I'd like to thank you for sharing time with us today and coming on the journey. I wish you well and the best in all of your endeavors.